In 2026, compliance is everywhere. Policies, training, attestations, tools, dashboards, yet breaches happen. Audits still escalate and boards still ask same uncomfortable questions. If we are compliant, why do you still feel exposed? Leaders are caught in tension they didn't sign up for. Teams are drowning in paperwork while attackers are exploiting real gaps. Controls exist, but evidence does not show up at the last mile. Excel quietly is becoming the largest untracked risk surface on GRC operating model. Tools are wrought but underused, and annual compliance collapses in a world that changes weekly. That matters now because rules of trust have been tightened globally. Not just security best practice, but a governance, disclosure, resilience, and accountability. Framework shifts NIST CFS 2.0, emphasis on govern, push cybersecurity risk into board language while regulations increasingly expect operational proof. Now, our guest, Anshuman Dani, is building an intersection of digital trust and compliance systems and AI enablement where modern enterprises must prove controls continuously protect data, responsibility, and move faster. Without further ado, let's welcome our speaker to the podcast event and have a deep dive into the topic. Hi Anshuman, welcome to our podcast, sir. How are
Hi
you?
Prem, hi. How are you doing?
Good, sir. Sir, a small intro about yourself, your journey at Chrysalis, and what is that we do at Chrysalis as a product, and how do we look at the GRC models? Over to you.
Short, Prem. See, in terms of my journey, I've spent a lot of time working in, especially the banking. I'm a banker, and post, turning to entrepreneurship, which was around the a decade and a half back. I've worked on multiple large scale systems to automating, various kinds of processes in enterprises, and that is where and we have always been a little ahead of the curve, uh, doing data platforms, or be it chatbot development platforms, maybe a couple of years ahead before they became they got trending. At this stage, Chrysalis, is what we had set out to build is pretty path breaking, in the sense that we are building something in the intersection of identity, security, and compliance. Because post the COVID era, then the whole digitization process taking off, uh, and after that, suddenly the AI native era starting, where we have the chat GPTs, and then there's an entire paradigm shift in the way we interact with everything in everyday life. So everything is kind of changing around us, and what we realized was that the old structures around which organizations used to operate from a security perspective is breaking down, and therefore what needs to be done, that's where Chrysalis is coming in, and we are building some pretty interesting stuff on that.
Thank you for that. I think the need of the R is the kind of products that we are looking at. I think that's where we are heading, is what I understand. Now, coming to our discussion today, why does compliance still fail when policies exist everywhere? Because we've been driven by policies, and every organization is a policy based organization, whether it is ISO, ISMS, or AIMS policies, right? So, and the frameworks like NIST and other things. Now, in spite of having all those things, still we fail. Your take on it, Anshu?
See, if you ask me, I have a slightly different way of looking at these things, in the sense that so I kind of try and bring in, what do you call, Elon Musk first principles kind of a thing.
Okay.
So basically saying that, you have had regulations, since ages. I mean, you would have, history has taught us that every kind of a kingdom would have its own regulations, would have. So the example I like to give in today's day and age is something like, traffic rules, right? You have so many policies around, regulations around traffic rules. India has probably more than 500 plus kind of rules and regulations. Singapore probably has only 70 odd, right?
Hmm.
What matters is not the number of policies that we have, or whether we have actually covered the length and breadth of every possible policy which is, possible. But what matters is the entire spirit of, what have we set out to achieve with this, and therefore how do we ensure the operational, execution of this particular policy. I mean, that becomes the key towards a successful execution. So that I think is where, we have, the ways and means in which we do it. We leave a lot of gaps out there. So that's going to change in the future as the regulatory authorities, become more stringent. Since we move to entirely digitized world, they would go on becoming more and more stringent. So we're seeing that change coming.
Oh, I get that point, but where is the real break that is happening? Whether it is people behavior, process design, control ownership, or evident collection, which is the point we are really breaking is what I want to understand when I look at we have everything what we are talking about. Because you said there are policies, there are procedures, every organization has been built. I think with that pointer, I would like to add also is that if you really look at network security was the first thing that it was called, then it became ISMS, right? Then we call it as security group, and then it was called cyber security. Now we're talking and breaking it into so much narrowed down to see how we protect our systems. Now where do we look at this point when it comes, where does it really break?
Right. So I think, see, the key part is obviously, the operational ownership part of it. And when we say operational ownership, that's where a lot of, so what do we mean by ownership? So, does it mean that, okay, I have done a checklist kind of a thing, everything is sorted, and then I look at, something, audit taking, on a yearly basis or maybe a quarterly basis. So, when I say that I am the owner of this, how am I actually looking at it? So do I basically say that, okay, do I have a set of controls and I say, okay, everything's working, uh, everything is set, and then look at it 12 months later? Or do I say every day, does I as a business owner, or do I as the owner of that particular vertical can say with certain amount of confidence that all my controls are my controls working today, rather than saying did it work last quarter. So that ownership of operational efficiency is, I think, the key place where it's breaking down, where I can just say that, okay, the audit has been done, SOC 2 was done last quarter, and hence we are safe. The illusion of being safe because SOC 2 was done in March, and then you have a credential leak in May, right? So the person who is responsible needs to then own up and say, oh, how do I fix this? What can I do with these controls, which can make it visible to me, where I can understand whenever there's a compliance drift.
I'm trying to figure out saying that there are pointers where the old way of looking at or yesterday what we had achieved is not okay for today, right? I think that's what we are saying in today's AI based on yesterday is history, actually, to speak today, what we
Absolutely.
are talking about today, right? Now, what is the name of one illusion boards still believe compliance? What is it?
uh, a illusion that, the board still believes in, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I think. I just, touched upon it briefly in my last response, where the board believes that if I have, if we have passed this audit, we are safe. That
Okay.
illusion of safety. I was on a conversation, I think a couple of months back, with one of the I mean I was sitting with some auditor, and I think he got a call from his client, and they had a security breach, uh, something which wasn't expected. They had, and it was to do with, we were talking to them around fraud prevention and all. And this the client calls up saying, how is it possible, we just did that audit on this thing. So that's exactly, where that delusion of being safe is there, because you just did an audit. And that is where, Prem, is where, I mean, we also work on it, and where the world is gradually converging to is, how do we get a continuous visibility to the controls which are extremely important. So the that's the world we are moving into, and a lot of tools are converging into that. Saying continuous visibility, continuous monitoring to understand, to look, to flag wherever there are gaps, to flag wherever risks emerge. So those are important.
No, no, I was part of one of the audit, and I was working as a backup security officer for a AI based product company about 2 years back, where we used to find strange things is that some of the pointers, as you rightly said, we did an audit few months back, and but what we started as a practice was to see how many credentials, how many service passwords are still there when the employee is left. That is one big thing that we used to look at. Now, as you rightly said, few people would have left the organization or elevated themselves to the next level, but their access is not taken care, right? Whether they need that access on the elevated role or it is to be removed. So that is one challenge which I faced. As you rightly said, we found people who have left the organization 3 months or elevated 3 months back still having the access, and they are trying to see what is that is happening. And that is the major concern, I think, what I found when I was a auditor for them. And we clearly had a IAM based review saying that every month access review was to be done. Every month we started doing rather than having it every quarter. Now, what is that we should shift from controls versus paper? What changes when leader shifts from documents to outcomes? What is that we should be doing?
See, when we shift from, say, paperwork and to, controls, when leaders shift towards what outcomes need to come out of it, they need to focus on controls that interrupt the real attack paths. So, for example, you just gave, identity and access reviews
Yeah.
with proof, with evidence, right? So, change management tied to production, or vendor access expiry, or backup and recovery testing, kind of evidences. So multiple such this thing we need to focus on. The leadership needs to focus on. Basically, ascertaining which are the controls that are extremely important, which needs real time monitoring, and which controls do not need real time monitoring. So kind of fixing the priority, so that you know exactly what is important. Now, if a control, but having said that, we will move towards something where monitoring becomes extremely important for more or less all the controls. If a control doesn't, kind of have a owner, doesn't produce a evidence, doesn't run on a schedule, then it's kind of a theater, right? It's done just for audit purposes.
Okay.
So we need to get down to the spirit of why we are doing the audit, and just not a tick box. And I'll tell you the reason why. I mean, see, it's always a challenge for leadership, top management of companies, where it acts as a counterbalance, right? So on one hand, you're going after growth. On another, so it's the maker checker kind of a thing. You want the auditors, the compliance managers to make sure that your systems are safe, your customers are safe, your employees are safe, you are working within the laws of the land. So but yet you need to go after business. So when they understand this, it basically, how do you balance both? You can't be that stringent where you're not doing business, right? But you also need to be compliant where you're protecting all your systems. You ensure that nothing untoward happens. So the key now with the way things are going is, how do I do it easily? How do I automate these processes so that at any point of time, if somebody tells me, I know that okay, I'm in control. Right. So, and the reason I told that to you is basically because there are instances. So, if I looking at the banking world, you'll observe that it has happened to a couple of fintechs. This thing. So, and not only fintechs, there've been some pretty big banks which have had to face the RBI's ire because they were taking shortcuts in KYCs, right? Now you have to understand that there are certain goals that needs to be achieved. So when we wanted to say open bank accounts for everybody, there was a Jandhan scheme which the government came up with. Obviously, the goal was to kind of open bank accounts so that everybody could become digitally literate. We could have an economy, and we have achieved it to a large degree. India today is among, a few countries in the world which has uses digital money massively, right? Uh, Having said that, there also comes a time where then suddenly you have a crop. It's like, the police lets you in the traffic. Again, come back to a traffic this thing. They let you go because a couple of people go because it reduces the traffic there. But suddenly you see so many people going in the wrong direction, right? So so that's exactly this thing. So they suddenly found that, oh, I mean, the number of mule accounts have increased. The if below 1 lakh or 50,000 kind of transaction, this thing, a lot of people started routing money through these accounts. And so a lot of issues started coming up. That's where this, they came down to KYC again, saying, oh, we need to now clamp down on this. So people who were already doing it, who were cognizant that okay, this would come up at some point in time, they could, they didn't face an issue. But then there were a lot of people who because of business pressures were not doing it. I think there were a couple of fintechs which got shut down for, the lending business got shut down for almost a year because they were not compliant.
Jim, I agree on compliance, KYC, these pointers when it is banking, right? Now, gone are those days, as you rightly said, where compliance was just a tick mark, right? Now, is there something which they call as a minimal control, which actually reduces risk, not just passing the audits? Is there something like that?
Uh, that definitely is. See, when we say that it's not passing the audits per se, uh, see, like you don't need to always have go through the regulatory this thing. Suppose I have a certain process which I want to set,
Hmm.
in the company. So I have certain policies around it, certain rules around it. Now I understand that it may not be foolproof, but I do need to set a system, and I do need to flag wherever I find a large enough drift. I
Hmm.
can probably allow people to operate within a certain band. The moment they go beyond that, so it basically flags it and lets the person know that rather than it being a kind of a lot of stick and this thing, it lets the person know that you have gone beyond this and you need to remedy this situation or fix the situation, which is very true of how auditors also work, and which is
Hmm.
where you've yourself done so many this thing. So they don't expect or the controls not to fail or everything to be foolproof, because the moment it is foolproof, you say that hey, something is wrong, right? so 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 what they expect is that okay, do you have a process in place to fix this, and how fast is that remedial time, how fast are you fixing that? that kind of satisfies this thing. So they look at the evidence per se, and they look at the proof which is presented to them, the freshness of the proof, and how fast the remedy was there to fix that particular thing.
No, as you were saying, see, there are people who just want to fix the minimum thing and say they are compliant, right? So I think that's what we are trying to look at now. Is there something where, or is there somewhere where we can fastly say to the spot a compliance program that is mostly a theater kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, see, the- uh, there are a lot of this thing. You would find a lot of audits which are kind of theaters, right? So you would, I remember long back, so people would be, there would only the auditor would come and sit in a on the conference room, and kind of it would all be stage managed, so that okay, audit is done, and then
Hmm.
after a month audit is done, everybody is relieved, so kind of
Yeah.
okay, mark. Right, so that's no longer the case when you are talking. So the audit or the compliances per se, I think people are understanding the necessity of it. Uh, and you would find that with DPDP coming in, people are getting even more cognizant of facts that okay, why should they have all these things? Why should data be? See, in India, we have never been, you know, uh, very concerned about privacy, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
so now gradually that education happens. Gradually, everybody's this thing, but yeah, when I say theater, as we move towards compliance automation, because see, as DPDP comes in, as we have other, especially the enterprises moving to compliance automation tools, having AI powered assistants to help them do it in a much better way, in a much faster way, you would find that the managing of things would not be required, because they would themselves realize that how easy it is to be on top of things when you have an automation automated system. The human this thing would always be there, but you can have a bunch of AI assistant to kind of help you manage this thing. So uh, the reason it was being managed was people felt that okay, this is an additional task that I have, which is not important to my business goals, not important to my growth in the organization. It felt like an additional task. But today, when you actually have a lot of help, it shows that you are in control of your business, your portfolio, whatever you are managing. You are able to do it in a much better way. So, event with a human approval, with ability to fix it very quickly, if something goes wrong, uh, with the proof of what has happened, when it has happened. So those things are, what will be done by systems which are coming in, uh, especially where you have track. I mean, not only Excel sheets. Excel sheets are anyway, something which is going to become history very soon. The reason being, of course, that it gives a lot of things, does away with a lot of issues that today people face, especially in terms of audit trails, in terms of your remediation taggings, in terms of versionings, multiple problems that they have. So we kind of are going to move into the system where theater would become a thing of past. You don't need to, the need to manage it won't be there.
Yeah, no, I think what you are saying is there will be continuous monitoring that will happen. There is continuous audit that is going to happen, and when we look at the AI powered thing, false positives getting reported faster than what we can detect and do have large team to look at these kind of false positives. That is all going to change in the compliance policies that are being getting driven through AI is what I am trying to get now. Uh, I think if your control does not produce a proper evidence, then it does not exist. Is what we are saying in as many words. What is the difference between having a control and proving controls? Right? What do strong teams do differently? Right? That's the point that I want to understand from you, Anshuman.
Yeah. So see, having a control and see, proving a control needs a proof chain, right?
Hmm.
There has to be a proof chain which basically proves that you proves that particular control. So, like I told you, it needs to have a particular chain of events. The system, what is the system event? Who was the human who gave the approval? What were the exceptions, if any, to that? Now, the AI agents actually make it very easy today, even to do the checking of evidences, to see from multiple, be it from metadata, from the evidence itself, how genuine it is, what is inside the evidence. Does it match the implementation criteria which is set out in the risk that is mapped to these controls? So thereby it is able to say, okay, there are these exceptions which are there, and therefore what kind of a remedy which is being taken, and that comes in the form of scores. So one is able to figure, okay, I am compliant to this degree in this particular control, and so much risk is left uncovered. What do I need to do this? How soon can I do it? So it needs a proof chain, which basically says that you need to prove it. It doesn't need to be a checkbox kind of a thing saying, "Oh, I have checked it." So you can keep on doing it on a continuous manner and ensure that you reach that a particular score which is acceptable from a compliance point of view.
Uh, the other point that I want to understand is how do the architectural evidence, how do we do an architecture that's evident, so it is reliable, timely, and ready to audit by default? Because we're talking about compliance by default, compliance design by default, and privacy by default, all these processes. Do you see that being the next step coming into the compliance arena as well?
Yeah, you would find, I know today in most of this, what is called as the compliance uh, operating systems and all, you would find control libraries which are kind of mapped to multiple frameworks, so that
Mm.
you are able to handle multiple frameworks that you kind of adhere to. You would find the risks mapped to it, the risk based applicability, which kind of come with this kind of systems. Who are the named owners? How is evidence automation done? So like, for example, we have a entire task management, this thing where one can actually have a assignee and a approver within an organization, and you have a AI agent doing the evidence automation, evidence checker happening there, and then the human coming into the loop and kind of cross checking it. So you have exception workflows out there. You have continuous testing happening. You have board level reporting happening today, which again is kind of no longer only limited to say reports or decks or this thing. So today, for example, you have a insights agent, and for example, both of us are on the board, and you could have a very different set of questions which is there inside the entire compliance directory or the compliance database. You could go out there and ask multiple questions, and it actually goes ahead and gives recommendations also. So that allows it to, the compliance architecture to be that this particular compliance architecture allows the entire this thing to be handled in a much better way. And not only handled in a much better way, it done in a far more easier manner, where you actually end up doing it, so that's the difference between this thing, and therein a lot of people get involved. So the reason I brought this up, Prem, was basically that earlier the say the a lot of top management would actually have one person and say that, hey, you take care of the audit person, or today you have the CISOs, kind of handling that. Uh, but when you have a kind of a assistant out there which is given to you, they themselves are interested to kind of query it. I mean, I have spoken to a couple of very senior folks out there. We have given some systems to. We've given one such system to a bank, and another to a regulatory authority, where people would want to get insights, live insights, and then break it down into a report rather than just reading from a report.
Very important point. I think, see, most of the dashboards shown to the executives, right, are, I think, pre-prepared. There are certain pointers that are listed out for them to know, right? What is one common lie these dashboards accidentally tell the executives?
See, I think accidentally is where a lot of sometimes what happens is, you have you have a lot of very colored
Yeah,
dashboards, and sometimes you have the green color, which means
green,
it's safe, right?
safe.
So the moment we say that, okay, it's green, it means it's compliant, it's safe. So
Yeah,
it may just mean that the task is completed, or something of that sort. So whereas real dashboards have to work more on the control failures, the evidence freshness, or the exception aging kind of for this thing. What is the time to remedy? Those are some things which the real dashboards this thing. A lot of times leadership gets a false comfort from seeing an overall score and a green this thing saying, hey, we are safe. So they need to probably do a little bit of this thing, or the dashboard needs to be done a little better.
now, what we are saying is, when you have a control that is mature enough, the proof also will be very, very mature when we give that kind of confidence. Is right now coming to the pointer that you are talking about, Excel being one of the modern risks in GRC, and what are the hidden failure models of the spreadsheet-led compliance, like version drift, access, audit trails, and ownership? These pointers are what you said in the previous pointer as well. Now, how do we look at resolving these pointers when we have the spreadsheet-led compliance thing driven?
See, I mean, see, Excel probably is the biggest risk today. You can no longer. That needs to be done away with as fast as possible, and we still find so many enterprises still stuck on that because it's easier. Maybe there's an inertia to move to, some automated tools, or because uh, one of the this thing also has been that, okay, you have so many different tools, not one more tool, right? So that's also sometimes the case with using this thing. Secondly, because you are kind of the auditor does it for you most of the time. You're saying, hey, it's almost like saying in in your own house. In India, I remember this dishwashers, for that to get used inside houses, it took the COVID for people to start using dishwashers, right? So otherwise people would say, hey, the other guy is doing it for me. Why do I need to?
I would-
So as long my auditor is doing it on an Excel sheet, I don't worry. But the problem is the what we talked about just a little while back. You don't have any version integrity, you don't have any ownership clarity, you don't have any audit trails, you don't have any access controls. So when you don't have so many things, there are so many blind spots which are there, and that's where that's what is exploited by this thing. And today, in today's day and age, you will not believe the kind of uh, threats that are there. You have, I mean, if you look at Netflix, this thing in terms of a Jamtara, that was very early days. It's very sophisticated now. Now, one is to understand with AI coming in, the hacksters, fraudsters, or the malicious users, whoever are there, so they have a deadly weapon at their this thing. So if you are stuck in the stone ages, auditing your systems, 3 month, even forget yearly, even on a quarterly basis, you don't have a clue of where they have come in. They are coming and sitting inside your systems. It could be a malware inside your systems. They could have taken away all your data. They could have exploited a system configuration. They could, you have deepfakes happening today where you can actually then copy a top management's voice. So there's so many factors which are there. So and from the compliance part cannot just say that okay, that's a security issue today,
Hmm.
because these things, everything is kind of converging, be it compliance, be it security, be it fraud prevention. All of them are now converging into a continuous monitoring kind of a this thing, and that is something which is being accepted by regulators, by governments, that this is one of the greatest threats to our way of life today, which is in a digital world. I mean, some of the numbers which we actually being put out probably are very conservative numbers, but the kind of digital frauds that we see in terms of OTP frauds, or kind of insider leaks that are there today. So that there are so many threats which are existing today, that businesses cannot operate unless they have their entire business under a continuous monitoring system.
No, you said the Excel is becoming a threat, right? No, how do we look at or what could be the replacement for it, Anshuman?
Yeah, the replacement, like I was telling you, has to be a compliance OS kind of a thing, which
Okay.
covers the entire automation part, and not only does it do it, as and it needs to be AI native. It cannot be a kind of a automated system which was like existing, say even 5 years back. It
Hmm.
needs to be very fast. It needs to be real time. The It cannot be a system which is kind of post facto kind of a thing, which is just triggering that okay, this thing has happened.
Okay.
It cannot anymore be limited to that. It needs to basically move towards a proactive prevention kind of a system, a runtime kind of a system. And that the trick
Hmm.
is there, that that's what companies would be demanding, that's what businesses would be demanding, saying that hey, now don't even tell me that I am at risk.
Okay.
You Can I have a system which can do a self healing remedy by itself? We definitely would have our people overlooking it, but I need to have the systems in place in the modern day and age.
Now, if Excel vanishes tomorrow, what would break the first in the most of the enterprises? Because we are talking of replacing now. As you started the discussion when we started with Excel, predominantly most of them don't want to move, right? Because the kind of comfort Excel is being given for the years is amazing, right? And what happens if that vanishes overnight?
See, the see what it gives is is the control ownership.
Hmm.
When the
Hmm.
Excel is there with you, it's there with you. I mean, till you finish off this thing.
Yeah.
So that control ownership which is there, and which is what you can track, is something which would break instantly, which is why people are not so. See, in every system, when you actually try to do some reforms, or you want to bring in a new way of doing it, there is uh, that there are always teething issues and this thing. But you do come to a certain point where it's inevitable. It's going to
Yeah,
happen any which way.
true.
So the inertia today that is happening is majorly because of control ownership, majorly because of evidence history, which kind of uh, is there with that particular auditor or this thing. So those things, exception memories, what are these? So they have a lot of that information which is available with them. These would break immediately. Having said that, there are ways and means where they can. So I'll tell you. You ask auditor A, he would have his own set of way of doing things, and he would probably look at these 10 controls to focus on. Auditor B would say, "Nee, nee, I need these all these things done in a certain manner." And this is how I will actually interpret the entire evidence. This is how exception tagging would be done. This is how. Now what we need, and the inertia is because of that. So what we need is a system which kind of mimics each person's this thing and yet puts it into a certain framework. So can I put their knowledge base which exists today with them and make it part of the entire structure? Then would come the acceptance which is there. It would break the old system, but would still ease them into this new system. I hope I was able to get that.
Yeah. No, I why I asked this question is, when I was the, as I was telling you, right, when I was the security officer, and I used to look at Azure's cost management, and I had put certain formulas where I used to download the CSV from Azure and populate that into a dashboard. And I had worked for quite some time on that, and I was able to do, you give me the download, next 10 minutes I was able to bring the dashboard saying costs at the disk sites is this much, these are the disks that are being used, these are the compute sizes that have been used, this is costing this, and these instances have been running, and they're kind of giving an insight where what usage can be reduced and stuff like that. That was my major contribution to look at cost. That was an additional work that was given to me because I used to know Excel well. Now,
Right.
looking at that scenario, is what you are saying. I was having my data, and that what you said there, right? So I had my control over it. Now, once it is done, it was of no use for me, right? So I think the second person or the third person would not get that access or the usage the way I used. That was
Absolutely.
one dependency which became, I had to sit and at a later stage when I quit that organization, I had to tell them step by step how this Excel is being done, how it is being
Absolutely.
configured. Now, what you are saying is with this going off, and the dependency is one thing that we want to remove is the first point. Second is that you can add so many things into an Excel as a code, and it can be a security threat also, is what I think you are coming up as a pointer now. Uh,
Absolutely.
your biggest GRC tool might be the biggest GRC vulnerability also, is what you are saying in as many words that you are saying. Now, compliance is not a one-time project, right? So it is a system. What does a real compliance operating system look like when you're talking about an operating system in 2026?
See, a real operating system, needs to be in 2026 needs to have the needs to be first is it needs to be AI native. It needs to be AI powered. It cannot be the system of the old. Therefore, it also gives us a lot of leeway in terms of how we can improve the work as it was being done. So, like I just told you, one of the things is because you can today make it AI powered, you can also kind of get each GRC consultant or an auditor to kind of come and whatever work they have already done, they had at that disposal, they can kind of come and put it into such a system, create their own knowledge base out there, so that their because that's what they kind of hold close. Hey, I have done all this work in the past. This is very this thing to me. So they kind of come and put it there. That gets augmented with the AI agents, this thing, knowledge, and they are able to get a view of things which probably was not available to them earlier. And that's what gives them the confidence. So this needs to become part of the system architecture for 2026 compliance automation system. Secondly, like I told you, the control libraries, the system needs to be intelligent enough to understand, have a centralized control library, understand which needs to be mapped to which kind of risks, and thereby what are the different kinds of things being covered. Say, like with one control, I may be covering some things in GDPR, something in NIST. So I am covered in when I am doing all this different kinds of control. So a control library is a part of that. Mm, the risks that are mapped there, what are the risks, how are they, so that is again where AI assistant can make work a lot easier. So we have seen how one is able to kind of figure out from and it's not that it's a very generic kind of a thing where you take from a chat GPT or something, which a lot of people have started doing, but you can actually make it your own. You can add your own the auditor can like he or she was doing on a Excel sheet. They can use these tools to create their own flavor into those risks that are mapped to these controls, how the evidences are kind of checked, and they can make it a self-learning system where you have a adaptive kind of a system which understands the way you want to kind of get this checks and balances in place. So those need to be a part of it. So the evidence automation, the exception workflows, and right till the stage where you have a system where real time monitoring is being done and real time reporting is also being done. So the very way that you get an alert if something goes wrong in your system, if something is it's actually viewing your entire system. So if there is any kind of a drift from your compliance, you do get an alert on a daily basis or on the morning, right there in the morning, right? So that's how a system compliance system would look like. And from an Indian context here, the DPDP rules kind of explicitly pushes for accountability and demonstrability. You have to demonstrate that you have all these systems and controls and standards in place. So you just can't get away through tick box anymore. If you look at even the Middle East coming up with multiple mandates today, so you have this very same things being put in so many other words, but it amounts to the same continuous monitoring.
You spoke about control library. One pointer that we are talking about. What are some core components apart from control library, like ownership models or evidence automation or exception handling and continuous testing? So, what are those core pointers that you would consider for this kind of an operating system?
Uh, you mean to say what are those? What are the most?
On a high level, what would be the architecture looking at this operating system that you want to bring in? So you were talking about control libraries, right?
Right, right.
What are the other components that would be needed as we build this operating system, which
Correct.
we want to look at?
So in addition to the control library, you would need the risk register. You would need the evidence checker. You would need your reporting systems in place. You would need your remedial workflows to be there inside it. So these are the other 4 5 pillars around which it needs to be built.
Now, we've been looking at so many things that we want to add and make it better, right? Now, what is one thing or you would like to delete from compliance programs to make it stronger instantly? Is there anything that you want to delete it off?
I think there's only one particular thing you need to delete from compliance, right? So you need to delete that annual compliance thing. it It is no longer a annual this thing that
Yeah.
okay will. So that's very evident now, and it's happening. It's already happening, uh, and see, compliance is just becoming part of the overall governance framework. Right? If you
Mm.
look at it, compliance. So companies today are looking at more of the governance framework. They are putting their internal policies also, multiple other, be it in terms of their IT risks, be it in terms of their financial risks, their business risks, multiple other frameworks are being put there. So compliance is just becoming one other part of it, and they are looking at kind of continuous monitoring for all these things. It's not only this thing. So compliance becomes a part of this entire construct where they put it into this framework and start monitoring it.
What you are saying is we should stop doing the compliance part and start running the compliance, right? So I think that's what we are trying to say, right? What do auditors really look for, and what do they ignore? Because certain auditors need this, it satisfies them. Certain auditors, if it is not there, it works, right? So how do you look at this pointer?
See, auditors, as far as this, auditors look for they want to verify. So while security teams may look at trying to explain, auditors want to verify, and therefore
Very.
they they would want proof, and they would want uh, the some a proof that actually can be interpreted in a certain manner, which would kind of be uh, can reduce the risk, can meet the requirement of those standards. So the verification part is the most important thing for the auditors. Stories fail. I mean, those trails pass, audit trails pass, right?
And what are the three pointers that auditors are must trust most? Consistency, traceability, exceptional handling. What are the three top things that you think they should be trusting it?
See, in consistency, you need to look at that the for the okay, is this for the same control, for the same evidence inside the same cycle, what is, am I getting the same results? If there is a drift, how large is that drift? So that's the consistency they keep on looking for. And similarly in traceability, they look at, okay, the action, the what was the decision, what was the action, what is the proof of that. They kind of need to be able to trace that. And so like I was saying, so it's not, they don't really, they know that controls will fail, but uh, how do you kind of, how fast can you detect it, how fast can you fix it, who has taken the ownership for it? These are some of the things which is extremely important for auditors. And similarly in exception handling, they're not looking for perfection. They're looking for honesty and closure. They want to verify it, and they need to close it. So that's, so you mostly find them, okay, can you these tell me what is the alternate this thing that you have done? Can you show me proof of that? Let's close it with this. So
Got it. What is the most expensive misunderstanding between security teams and auditors?
okay. So I think I was this is where I was just telling you, a while back. I mean, auditors want that verification. Security
Mm,
teams want to explain why did it happen in this
yeah,
manner, right? So I'll tell you, wait, I'll tell you how this happened, why this happened, and so they would tell an entire from their perspective. I
yeah.
mean, that's what happened to them. That's the story behind it. Whereas what the auditor wants is saying, okay, all this
Mm,
thing happened. You show me the
proof.
proof. You show me the verification. I need to verify this.
Maybe
Show
an
me the.
audit log and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now this guy is thinking, okay,
Mm,
what is the proof? I mean, I've told you the entire story. How do I prove it? So what in my entire story do I have which can prove this? Right. So that's where they kind of keep on having a conversation.
what you're saying is auditors don't want stories, they want facts, I think. They want facts, they want trails, they want the proofs that maybe in terms of audit logs or anything like that, right?
Yes. Yes.
One
Yes.
last question that I have before we conclude, and we have two three comments coming in. uh, Control versus evidence, where teams actually struggle, and what is that true bottleneck that they have?
You're saying control versus evidence. What is the
Teams
bottleneck that?
actually which they struggle, right?
Hmm. See, it is again to do with the ownership. So
Hmm.
who owns that control? So that needs to be which is where the automated systems and this thing, once this they come in, they fix it to a large extent, no, not completely, but to this thing. But yeah, the problem that lies is in ownership ambiguity, where everyone assumes that it is someone else's job to do it. I mean, which happens all the time. So that's number one, and number two is where the fear of transparency also plays a role. You will not believe it, when we were a couple of months back, when we were actually talking to, and I'm talking to this more from a business owner of a young startup working in automation and all. So when we were doing our kind of research or depth interviews and all that, so this fear of transparency was something which was all which came across, that sometimes you whatever proof is given, oh, we'll take it so for example, I asked somebody, do you want us to put a feature in the system which can actually check if the proof submitted is true or false?
Hmm.
So
Okay.
the feedback I got overwhelmingly was, no, we'll trust whatever is there, because uh, I mean, if they are saying that this is the proof they want to submit, we will trust that. So we don't
Okay.
want to go, too ahead and this thing. So the fear of transparency also plays a part, where evidence sometimes exposes too large a gap and say that, hey, I didn't even need to do it. It's almost saying, uh, apni burai karna types, right? Where it is not required. So you're saying that, okay, the ownership is a bottleneck. The transparency sometimes becomes a bottleneck. So you need to kind of fix those things.
Anshuman, I have three pointers which have come. I have repasted that because I'm not able to bring the comments from LinkedIn to the screen, but I've pasted it here. So Rahul Soni says, for AI GRC frameworks, give me a second. I'll move this.
How can automated tools address?
Address common policy gaps like accessibility and continuous certification. This is a question from Rahul Soni on LinkedIn, but I'm not able to bring that on LinkedIn, so I pasted it here. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. See, Rahul, you're like I was telling you. See, these automated tools are not the tools of yesterday's. So these are today's tools are kind of made up of a clutch of different, what you call a swarm of agentic AI, or agents working in tandem with each other. So there in the access, when it becomes very easy for you and me, or somebody who wants to kind of uh, do a certification or accessibility, to no longer is it hidden behind a lot of you know jargons or something which we feel, hey, it's difficult for me to get into this world. You kind of use these agents to understand, okay, how does it work, what do I need to do to basically ensure that and it becomes very easy to spend, do a stepwise study on using these agents, and it's very accessible also. So you can use these tools and understand the policy gaps. Uh, how do you measure it? You can become an expert yourself. I hope that was the question you asked. But yeah, I mean, the way the systems are being built today would address these problems.
I have another question where on point conversation cannot be overemphasized. Is from Richa. She's put a pointer there. Then I have one question from Sri Krishna saying that which background produces more effective auditors, technical professionals or who acquire auditing expertise, or auditors who develop technical professionals? I think.
Uh, so Uh, see, obviously, I mean, see, we'll let it rest with the auditors who it's their domain finally, right?
Yeah.
I seriously think that we and that is what is it is mostly going to pan out like that the AI is would remain an assistant. It would not. I mean, we are far off from a AGI kind of a thing. So the technical person has to kind of be good at what he or she is. The auditor is who is the SME, who is the subject matter expert. They would obviously need to develop some bit of technical proficiency, not too much. You have AI helping you with that today. You don't need to really be very technically proficient, but you do need to be a good subject matter expert. And you would always be, I mean, the human would always be there in the system, would be there in the loop. They just need to understand how to use it.
No, my take on that is a little different. I think, see, as you said rightly, that auditors play their role, the technical staff play their own role, saying that they trust the evidence that is given to the auditors. But now, once you are a technical guy, you should look at technical solving problem, is my take. And if you become an auditor, you are supposed to not look at technical pointers. You are supposed to question that audit that you are getting given as an evidence. So, as an auditor, you are supposed to question, is my point, because this I learned in a hard
Correct.
way. I was a I'm still a technical person, but I used to conduct audits, and I used to say I can do this also. No, it can be done. Then one of the close friend of mine who was looking at Prem, now you should act as an auditor, not as a technical person. So you don't give solutions. You are supposed to
Ask
find out evidences, ask
evidences.
the right questions to build that evidences that have been as called as NCs or an observation. So technical, let it be technical. Auditors,
Absolutely.
that's what Anshuman is saying in as many words as they're there. So I have another question where Pooja says one thing is one question: auditors trust proof, not claim. So that's the first pointer she says, and second pointer, that is a policy without execution, no control. So that's what Pooja is saying while we get into those pointers. I think those are the pointers that we got from the audience. Anshuman,
Right.
any pointers that you want to add before I go out and take out the takeaways that I've listed for the discussion that we had for the last 1 hour?
No, so the only thing I wanted to kind of end it up with is that with what the way regulations are being framed today, the way the authorities or the governments are taking note, and it's a serious business today. Be it in terms of, do we allow crypto to come into the country? Do we allow anything? This is very serious because the very way of life is changing around us. So AI governance becomes unavoidable. We will need a governance framework for that, and we will need a real time monitoring for that. So it cannot be done any other way. So the faster we move into it, the better for any business.
What Anshuman is saying is absolutely right. And if you want to try our free AI based assistants to gain more clarity, that you want to look at the compliances, you put a link down there, and there is a QR that is there where you can scan and use that product to test some of the compliance pointers that Anshuman and Chrysalis team has put across to bring up some of the compliance frameworks that you can use, right? So I would like to put some of the takeaways that we want to look. Policies don't equal protection is the first pointer. That is, controls must operate consistently and provide evidence is the first point that we want to take. Excel driven GRC is going to be invisible, and it is a current invisible risk, right? And modern GRC needs workflows, ownership, and traceability. And audit readiness is a byproduct of operational discipline, not a seasonal project. These are the pointers that I want to take as a takeaway for the audience. With this, we are on top of the hour, and would like to conclude this session. Any pointers that you want to put us, you can drop your comments on the comment on LinkedIn and YouTube. We'll respond to your comments, and we will see that your points are addressed. And the people who have asked these questions, thank you for being here and asking the questions. Furthermore questions, please do reach us, and you can connect to us on LinkedIn and Facebook, YouTube there. And if you want to connect and talk to Anshuman, this is his LinkedIn profile where you can connect. Anshuman, thank you for being here, and it's a honor to
Pleasure.
have you on the session, sir.
Thank you, Prem. It was a pleasure being here. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, good day.
Thank you, everyone.